So now let's talk about the other shootings that have been going on in Malibu that most of the country is not aware of and people in Los Angeles are barely aware of, yet there's perhaps some form of a serial killer who could be still at large, who has been shooting people in Malibu leading up to this Thousand Oaks shooting. So give us the background on it as succinctly as you can, because a lot of people don't know the story.
Well, it goes back to June 22nd of this year, and at dawn, the murder of Tristan Beaudette was called in. He was shot in the head at 4:44 a.m. at Malibu Creek State Park, with his two daughters laying next to him in the tent. Apparently there was a shot in the side of the tent, a shot over the top of the tent, and there were some shell casings on the outside. So once the murder was released into media, I remember just being dumbfounded, like, how the hell is that going to take place in Malibu? Why would that happen? And because we've never had something like that happen before. And then, so later on that day, I was, like I said before, I was never really into crime reporting, but I always reported on public safety and things like that. So
in Malibu, you report on surfing competitions more than crime, I would think.
No. Some of us report on public corruption. So, yeah. I mean, if you look at all the other fluff pieces, it's,
But you don't, when you think of Malibu, you don't think of crime.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, and again, like I said, public safety for me is multiple accidents on PCH, rock slides, fires, whatever. So, so later on that day, so I'm thinking to myself, God, am I going to put that up on the local? I don't know. I mean, it's news, but I am very much investigative op-ed pieces. So later on that night, I received a private message from another resident, knowing that I'm the type of person to get the message out. And she said, I just want you to know that a Tesla was hit in the hood at the same time, pretty much the same place, only not inside the park, but driving on Malibu Canyon right outside the park. Like literally same area.
And on the same day?
No, 4 days before the murder. And so I looked at that and I went, okay, looks like we have ourselves a problem here. So I posted it on the Local Malibu Facebook page. I cropped out all the identifying information of the people who sent it to me, of course. And I said, okay, people, looks like we have a problem here. I want you to be careful driving on Malibu Canyon. There may be a larger issue at hand. And so literally within a few hours, other victims started coming out on my page. I was shot at Malibu Creek State Park shootings. Law enforcement never did anything. And this was Melissa Tangelo, who posted a picture of a giant hole in the back of her car that was hit by a shotgun. And slug was placed right on the bumper so you could see the size of the slug. And then other victims started coming out. And then the news started coming after me and saying, hey, do you want to talk about this? So to me, I don't think anything of it. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to talk about it because clearly something's been going on and nobody's been telling us about it. And had this guy, this father of two, known that there were shootings in the park happening for the last 2 years, he may have made a different decision as to his camping plans that night.
And what type of gun was used in his death? A shotgun or a rifle?
It was a rifle. But nobody knew it was a rifle until a few months ago. Actually, October 2nd, I think, was when we found out that it was a rifle.
So months after the actual shooting is when
Yes.
they finally released the ballistics report, essentially?
No, they didn't release any ballistics yet. I can't wait for them to release the ballistics because I have my own theories on that. But so they basically allowed us to believe that all the shootings, and there were a total of 6, maybe 7, I think, in between 6 and 7, that that all of them were committed by a shotgun. They didn't want to tell us that the murder and the Tesla were really a rifle. And we didn't learn that. And I actually learned it by accident about the Tesla. I didn't learn it by accident about the rifle. So I started going on the news, writing about the shootings.
Why is that an important distinction in your mind, whether they were done with a shotgun versus a rifle?
Because when they arrested Anthony Rauda for burglaries, and right now he's in jail for only a parole violation, not calling his parole officer. So he was arrested on October 10th, I believe, and we are now December 11th, and they have not charged him with anything other than not calling his parole officer. Okay? So the reason why it's a big deal is because I believe, personally, that there are two shooters. I don't believe there's one shooter, and I don't even believe Anthony Rauda committed any of them. Okay.
Well, has he been charged with any of them?
No.
Okay. So why are you even connecting his arrest to the shooting?
Because because Jim McDonnell, our former sheriff, was literally piling everything together and saying, "Hey, we got the guy. Here he is."
So the sheriff
Big
said that
press
we
conference.
So the sheriff gave a press conference and said that we
Yes.
found the guy who shot.
He didn't say that specifically, meaning
Tristan
he was
Beaudette?
He was careful with his words, but he alluded to the fact that this guy was most likely responsible for all of the shootings. He led every word that he said was he brought in all the shootings. If he thought that he was not responsible for all the shootings, he would have said, "This is just a burglary suspect. He has a weapon consistent with the murder, but the weapon he didn't have a shotgun on him." And so there's at least 4 shootings that were committed with a shotgun. Where's the shotgun? Okay? And then 2 shootings committed with a rifle. So where's the shotgun? Where's the evidence? How do you know that this guy is even involved in any of those shootings? Just because it's the same area? No, that's not good enough. And so they found Anthony Rauda on camera, and all of this to me is so contrived. I just don't even know, it's like out of a movie, really. Because when they found Anthony Rauda on video, he had a rifle slung over his back, and he was burglarizing a office space in the area of Mulholland and Malibu Canyon at Malibu Valley Farms. And so it was almost too perfect. Like you can't even plan a wedding and have it come out as perfectly as they had all these details come out literally 1 month before the sheriff's election. And meanwhile, the 3 months before, I had been just annihilating LASD and how corrupt they were with this investigation.
Los Angeles Sheriff's Department.
Correct. Sorry.
Which is responsible for the park, responsible for Malibu.
Well, they are responsible really for the crimes that are committed outside of the park, the crimes committed inside of the park, unless it's murder and State Parks brings them in. State Parks is really responsible for the crimes that are committed inside the park, but they are supposed to work together with LASD. Now, during the other shootings, LASD was called, and they said, we can't step on State Park's toes. So a bunch of Boy Scouts come out and take evidence, and they have no investigative unit at State Parks. I mean, who the hell allows that to happen? This is assault with a deadly weapon. This is attempted murder. How do you let Boy Scouts come and collect evidence? So I even sent an email to the head of State Parks, who I know very well and worked well with on the Malibu Lagoon restoration project, which was a huge controversy in Malibu. So I've been on his good side helping him before. But I emailed him and I said, hello, where's the evidence? Has it been turned over to LASD? Where's the shotgun? Where is the evidence, and where are the reports that were done and followed up on by LAST? Well, you want to talk about crickets? I got crickets. Okay, nothing. You know why? Because I guarantee you, the Boy Scout picked up the bullet or the slug, picked up the slug, and whatever else he could find on each one of these incidents, went back to the office, threw it in the garbage, called it a day. Literally. Otherwise, we'd have it, and we don't.
So going back to Beaudette's murder.
Yeah.
This is someone who shot him from outside the tent because there's a bullet hole in the tent.
Correct.
And from what distance?
From what I was told, in between 100 to 200 feet, but don't.
100 to 200 feet, so pretty far
like
away.
That.
Half of a football field away.
I guess, yeah.
And you're shooting into a tent where presumably you can't see inside the tent. So
yeah,
are
we calling this a lucky shot? I don't know. Are we calling this a guy who is a trained,
but that we now know
sniper?
was a rifle.
We do know, and we only found that out when he was arrested, and they got him on video with this rifle being slung across his back. The PIO, Public Information Officer for LASD, decides to release this forthcoming press release, basically stating that the weapon was consistent with other crimes committed in the last 2 years. And then she threw in Tristan Beaudette's name in that press release and lumped together. In other words, if you knew how to read between the lines, it was all right there. Mm-hmm. Then putting all together.
They're implying that
it was all committed by one, that he is most likely involved in all of these. Mm. Okay?
But he hasn't been charged with any of them.
Not even the burglaries, multiple.
And so how many other shootings were there that we think took place with a rifle?
One.
And that was of the
Tesla.
The Tesla.
4 days
and
before.
And there she's got a bullet hole in her car.
It's him, and he has a bullet I believe it's like literally right in the center of the hood because it popped open the hood.
And then you've got some other mysterious deaths where bodies were found, right?
Those were body dumps. And those were gang-related, and one was literally across the street from Malibu Creek State Park in the ditch in front of the Hindu temple. And that was an execution-style MS-13 hit. They have their own distinct markings, which I thought was like...
So what is MS-13 doing in Malibu?
You got me. I mean, it's got to be... It was a pretty bold move to dump the guy on the corner of a busy intersection in pretty much a suburban neighborhood. Like, it's like, that was like, we're here.
And we should describe how big Malibu is. It's 27 miles of coastline, which it's very famous for. But in addition to that, it's 27 miles of valleys, hills, mountains, and so forth. It's a huge area.
Yes. There's the incorporated part of Malibu, and there's the unincorporated part of Malibu. And most of the unincorporated part of Malibu is up in the canyons. So Malibu Canyon, Latigo Canyon,
and there's things growing in those hills.
Oh, yes.
Tell us what's growing there.
Definitely a lot of pot operations I shouldn't say a lot of pot operations. There's plenty of pot operations.
Have you actually seen these fields of pot?
No, but I've heard all about them dating back to...
But they would be in open fields, or they would be covered, or...
No, they're in thick brush areas. And going back to the Mitrice Richardson case, and I'm sure long before that,
we'll get to that.
Her body was found close to a pot operation that was a grow operation that was eradicated by state parks, and they found her on the fringes of those. So
who's going around hunting to try to shut these things down? It's state
parks. State parks has to do that. I'm sure LASD does it on some level. In cooperation, MRCA.
And this is probably being grown by Mexican cartels?
I'm sure plenty of them are, yes.
That's something I think a lot of people don't realize, is that a lot of the, marijuana is now legal in California.
Yeah.
But supposedly when you go into these places like MedMen and so on, Where is that pot actually coming from? It's being grown in California, but it's being grown illegally by cartels.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to a guy who had his own shop, and he says there is cartel pot, and then there is your more legit legal pot.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, do you really want to go into the growing business in California when your competition is the Mexican cartels? That sounds a little scary.
No, I think what's even more scary, to be honest, is just knowing that, I mean, if they're just doing their pot grows is one thing, but to have a body dumped on the corner of Malibu Canyon
well, there's
in front of a Hindu temple, yes, there were two, but I'm just saying that one like there have been body dumps for decades in the canyons, okay? But to have them literally dump him on the corner of a busy main artery that goes from Malibu to the 101 freeway in front of a Hindu temple, that's scary stuff.
Well, in other words, they wanted him to be found. When
not only did they want him to be found, but they wanted people to know we are here because that was an execution-style gang hit,
right? With
very specific markings. So they wanted him to be found, him to be ridiculed, but people to know that MS-13 was responsible for it, and they are literally in our neighborhood.
Yeah. Here was one of the press reports about it. Further complicating matters, county officials not authorized to speak on the record note the practice by Mexican cartels of sending forced labor across the border to grow small black market plots of marijuana in the most remote parts of the mountains around Malibu Creek State Park. They say small groups of men, often working in pairs, spend weeks at a time camping out alongside water sources buried deep in the canyons as the pot plants come to maturity. Now and again, one will hike down into town to fetch food and water. The sheriffs, in turn, occasionally send out marijuana eradication teams to destroy the illegal grows. Law enforcement has not linked the cartel activity to any of the most recent violence. So you got that going on.
Yeah. You know, the pot grows have never really been a big discussion or a big problem, at least throughout the community. We haven't really been affected by the criminal activity involved with that until the bodies start showing up, and then you start worrying about your safety. Mm-hmm. And whether are they going to target others?
Well, it's typical of any gang violence in the U.S. It usually only affects gangs until somebody wanders in accidentally into the wrong neighborhood. And in Mexico, there's tons of crime, but it's usually cartel on cartel crime, etc. But occasionally people wander where they shouldn't have gone. So you wonder whether or not there is any connection between this cartel activity that's happening in Malibu, of all places, and these other shootings.
But that is also one of the theories in the Mitrice Richardson case, because her body was found literally while State Parks was going to check on a recently eradicated pot grow operation.
Okay, so tell her story, because this is really the first of the string of shootings in Malibu.
Well, no, she was not a shooting victim, but she was a person that went missing
in 2006.
In 2009, and she was taken into the Lost Hills Sheriff's Department, and they released her.
She had been arrested for what?
She was having an episode, a mental health issue episode, at Joffrey's restaurant. Did not have money to pay for her bill.
Joffrey's Restaurant, a very high-end restaurant in Malibu.
Yes, Joffrey's Restaurant. Thank you for clarifying that. Most people don't know that.
No.
Excuse me. So,
So she's arrested for erratic behavior at a restaurant.
Erratic behavior, not paying her bill. There's lots of details surrounding that would lead people to believe that she really shouldn't have been taken in to Lost Hills.
Is she a Malibu resident?
No, she lived quite far away, but she was taken into Lost Hills. Her car was towed, and Lost Hills released her at midnight, even though they were contacted by her family, said, do not release her until we can come get her. There absolutely was some issue of mental illness that she was suffering from. And So she was released with no car, no money, no cell phone at 12 midnight.
Why wouldn't they have given her those items back, or did they arrest her without those items?
We do not know that, and there is still an ongoing investigation.
So either when they arrested her, she didn't have them at that time, or when they arrested her, they took the possessions and didn't give them back to her. We don't
Correct. Know. And there is a very...
What does the family say? Or who was with her at Joffrey's?
She was not with anybody. She was on her own. I believe. So, however, the issue is, why was she released and not released to her family? Why was her family not contacted? And there are some very sketchy details involved on behalf of the law enforcement officials such as editing a tape of her leaving the station, hiding the tape, not releasing it when they should have released it.
What would be significant about that, do you think?
There was probably some very telling information in there as to who was involved at the station. As one of the other officers who was privy to some of the information said, I was not involved in that scandalous activity, basically, is what he said.
So they release her, and she doesn't have a cell phone, doesn't have a wallet, etc., and she goes missing. She presumably wanders out of the station, never to be seen again?
Correct. Well, she was seen at 4 o'clock that morning, so she was released at midnight. At 4 o'clock in the morning, she was seen in a resident's backyard in Montanito. And after that, she was not seen again until her body was found 10 months later next to the Pacro area, like I said. And she was found by 2 rangers.
And what was cause of death?
They still do not know. It's still undetermined.
So
we are still investigating.
She wasn't a shooting victim. They didn't see, for instance, evidence of rape or violence.
Well, her body had already been exposed too much to the, and it was mishandled when it was found.
So the sheriff's department came under a lot of scrutiny for that. That why you releasing
Lost
this
Hills
woman
specifically.
The Lost Hills division.
Yes, still is under a black cloud until we really find out what took place that night. And there are officers there who knew that there was shenanigans, scandalous behavior, whatever was happening. And the fact that that tape was hidden in the captain's drawer and edited is a big problem.
You have to tell me, what is the speculation about shenanigans? What type of shenanigans are we talking about?
I'm pretty sure that there was some type of sexual assault that occurred there. But, I can't prove it right this moment. But that's where it's going to.
What leads you to believe that?
Another investigation involving another high-ranking officer who was involved in similar activity.
And is there anything come to light on the...
It's going to come to light soon. I just can't release it just right this moment. But it is, as a matter of fact, as a result of my investigations on the Malibu Creek State Park shooting, one of those victims of one of the crimes that I'm speaking of found the Mitrice Richardson documentary on my social media, found the person who committed those crimes against her, contacted somebody involved with the documentary, and that's how the investigation began.
So in the documentary, it's asserted essentially or speculated that there was a sexual assault?
I don't believe that detail is in the documentary. I can't say that 100% for sure. I can tell you that with all my investigations, I do believe that some type of sexual assault may have occurred and led to her death.
And you have a particular officer in mind?
No. I shouldn't say that. Now that I have this other information, I think this high-ranking officer could be involved in some of it, not all of it. Like, who knows? She could have, as far as her death goes, she could have stumbled across this pot grow operation and somebody may have taken her out that way. However, I do know something went on at that station. And the reason why she was released the way she was released, in her condition, mental condition, leads us to believe that something was clearly going on at that station. And then the evidence that has now come to light of a high-ranking officer that was involved in a sexual assault case. A
sexual assault of someone who had been
somebody
arrested?
Else. No, somebody else. No, they haven't been arrested. But
No, but the person that the officer assaulted was
not arrested.
Uh-huh.
This person was preyed upon in some manner.
And
I can't release too much information yet.
And has the officer been suspended at this point?
This officer is no longer with the department, but is being investigated.
Did it happen while he was still with the department?
Yes, it did.
So presumably he was fired or suspended as a result of this?
Nope.
Unrelated?
Yep.
And this story you think is going to come to light
pretty soon? I hope.
And what leads you to believe that one is connected with the other?
Because he was at this station at the time.
You believe he was at the station the night that she was there?
Not necessarily the night. He was at the station, and that's all I can say.
He was working out of that station?
Yes, correct.
The Lost Hills Division?
Correct.
So let's talk about two other shootings. We've got James Rogers.
Yes.
Who apparently was shot while sleeping in a hammock in November 2016. He awoke to pain in his side and then began pulling shotgun pellets out of his arm.
Yes.
He survived but required surgery. The shooter was never found. Now that one apparently...
That's buckshot.
Right.
That was also...
So here we've got...
And I spoke to him personally, and I have his emails. And
what's the theory there?
It's the same guy that committed the Melissa Tangelos, James Rogers, a trailer. I believe there was another one.
So yeah, Melissa Tangelo.
Oh yeah. There's the white car. There's the white car too that was sprayed with buckshot. There's Melissa Tangelo, James Rogers, and a trailer that was hit, and that was all in between November 2016 and July of 2017. So those were those four. Mm-hmm. And then you've
got some with the shotgun and some with the rifle, apparently. Because
yes,
you're
the
saying
last two are the rifle. Yes. The last two are with the rifle. And, but we didn't learn about the rifle until way late in the game. Like, they tried to keep the rifle from us because they apparently wanted to... not have a copycat out there. I don't know. Whatever their excuses were to keep the rifle a secret, to me, at this point, makes me believe more that there are absolutely two shooters, not one.
Because of two different types of weapons.
Because of two different types of weapons, and it just... the Anthony Rauda, to me, does not fit the profile of what the other shootings... And also the shooting in the middle of the night, like, you have to have night vision. You've got to be
Well, I guess I would ask a question.
Lucky shot being in between two children, and when those two children woke up and the report was made to authorities and first responders showed up. Sorry, one of the daughters was so completely covered in blood that they had to pat her down to make sure she wasn't hit. So how do you get a perfect shot like that in the dark? Okay, even a highly trained sniper, that's you got to be real good to get that. I'm not believing lucky shot for some reason. I'm just not.
So you're rough on the Lost Hills Division of the LA County Sheriff's Department when it comes to these shootings and implying that they're covering something up or so forth. But why would there be a cover-up? I mean, what would they be embarrassed about? I mean, these are first of all, some of these are parklands, right? So they're not necessarily even responsible for. And gosh, I don't think anybody would hold a police department responsible for stopping a shooting that happens at 4 a.m. in the middle of a parkland. I mean, police aren't hanging out there.
I'm going to tell you right now that there are a couple of things that I believe. Number one, I've seen sheer laziness, come out of state parks and Lost Hills. Laziness. Now, whether they're covering up for somebody, and that doesn't mean every single ranger and every single cop, but there are plenty of lazy, law enforcement out there.
When you say when it comes to investigating what's
correct. As a matter of fact, there's been a joke that goes around for quite some time, and it's the ones who are not good at law enforcement are sent to Lost Hills. That's what they've said in the past. And now that Alex Villanueva is sheriff, that's going to change, like big time.
So everybody knows a new sheriff was elected in November, which was he defeated the incumbent sheriff, which was very unusual.
It's impossible, and it was the first time it's ever been done in this race. He is the first Democratic sheriff in 155 years. Alex had $25,000 only to promote himself and use, and Jim McDonnell had $750,000 in every news station behind him, and even LA Times. And Alex's ground campaign kicked ass.
And has he said anything yet about these Malibu shootings since he was elected?
He came out to Malibu to speak because he was following my reporting of the shootings, and one of his confidants, Dr. Rhonda Hampton, who also was instrumental in his ground campaign, is a close friend of mine. So she, had kept Alex up to date on what was going on in Malibu because it was so high profile. Even though there are a lot of people who don't know about it, there was a lot of global press on it. And I was interviewed quite a few times because I was very knowledgeable about it. And so Alex reached out to me during his campaign, and we had many talks about it. And he came out to Malibu Creek State Park to have a press conference because of what was going on.
And what is he saying about it? The shootings?
Well, at the time that he came, there was the 2 SWAT maneuvers that were very high profile, covered on the news, which, in my opinion and his opinion, was a dog and pony show. This was all, that's why I was saying, when they arrested Rauda, you couldn't plan a wedding better and have it come out perfect than the way this arrest came about. And NBC was there to capture it, and the SWAT was there, and the dogs were there, and they even had a second SWAT production happen. And I wrote about that and how contrived it all was. And come to find out, I have since talked to some guys that are in SWAT, and they are pissed. It was not handled properly. This was a clear dog and pony show.
Why do you even need SWAT to arrest a guy?
You don't. That's my point. This was like a movie production, and it was a joke.
And NBC got a special invitation to it.
The day that they arrested Rauda, 2 days before they arrested Rauda, there was this big SWAT production near Malibu Valley Farms, and that was after the burglary. And so people are blowing up my phone going, what's happening? What's happening? Why is there SWAT? And what's going on now? Like they thought something crazy happened. And I'm like, okay, everybody get organized, call Lost Hills, and let's see what they tell each one of you. Are they all going to tell you the same story, or are they going to tell you a different story? Well, everyone that called, they said, there's an armed burglary. Well, everybody's like going, should we lock our doors and windows? What's going on here? And he said, no, everything's fine. So finally a mother called with the small children, and he said the same thing, everything, she said, should I lock my doors and windows? He said, no, everything's fine. She's like, well, can I take my kid to the park? He's like, yeah, no problem.
Take my kids where?
To a park. Okay.
Oh.
I mean, here's SWAT literally in the middle of the morning commute. Okay. People are driving down the street seeing SWAT on the side of the road, all these police cars, and you call the desk and the desk says, oh, no problem, go take your kid to the park. Okay. Like, it made no sense. So
and they were responding to essentially a common burglary.
Well, okay, so I had to do my research. So all of a sudden I look on, somebody sends me a tweet from the special weapons team, and they were taking photo ops, basically, and going, oh, we're tracking an armed burglary suspect. Okay. Is it happening now? What happened here? Come to find out, the burglary had happened 2 days before. So these guys are out in full SWAT mission status for something that happened 2 days before. What the hell is that? So, and NBC is perfectly positioned there to get the story. So I'm uploading these pictures, not knowing that I'm hearing NBC is there. I'm uploading this tweet going, can somebody please tell me what's going on here? And by somebody please tell me what's going on here, I mean my locals who are out there who send me information. I'm like saying to them, somebody please DM me and let me know what you're seeing over there. And so not long after that, Eric Leonard from NBC, I've never met the guy, do not follow him, do not know him, comes onto my Twitter feed and drops the link to his story on my feed and says, we were there today, here's some insight. So I wrote him back and I'm like, oh, so this is your insight. Clearly you have not done your research, because if you had, you would have known that I've been investigating these stories since June. So who are you? So I basically kind of publicly ridiculed him a little bit.
Well, he put it on your feed, presumably because he knew you were covering this story,
No, he
right?
put it on my feed to be an asshole.
Oh.
And to try to assert himself as being, now he's the authority and he's got the story and he's got the breaking news about this suspect, when I cannot wait for tomorrow, because tomorrow is Rauda's is another hearing for Rauda. And they've only got this guy, they don't even have him on burglaries, they've only got him on a parole violation for not making a phone call. So as soon as I get what the result of tomorrow, and there's no ballistics back, or actually, I take that back. There is ballistics back, but they're not releasing it. Gee, I wonder why.
And what do we know about...
McDonald would have been going, I caught the killer. I caught the killer on his way out. And that's not what's happening right now. And I cannot wait to ridicule Eric Leonard, like acting like he knows everything about this.
And what do we know about this Rauda guy that was arrested? Do we know much about his background?
Well, here's the thing. I did do my research on him as well. And he, yes, he's troubled. Yes, but he's never, the worst thing he's ever done is bodily harm, okay? And when you are mentally ill and you have issues and cannot be around people and you're paranoid, it's if somebody gets too close to you, that's what's going to happen. You're going to elbow them. You're going to get them out of your way. You also tend to carry some type of a weapon on you. I'm not saying a gun necessarily, but something to protect yourself because you're paranoid. Okay, you're walking around paranoid, and I've discussed this at length with mental health. And
he had been living in the woods?
I don't believe that. I mean, if you look at his picture, as a matter of fact, I've talked with SWAT, and they had very different descriptions of what they were looking for as opposed to what was arrested. So the more investigating I do and the more I hear, this was the biggest bullshit operation on the planet. And it was really done to
help McDonald in his
help
campaign.
McDonald. Yes, it was all for. It was political grandstanding, is what it was. And so, for me, I knew it. I could see it. Writing was on the wall. Anytime SWAT was there, the perimeter was not secured. Even SWAT guys were saying this is not safe. They're carrying AR-15s on their back, and cars are driving by. It's like, really? So we should find out tomorrow if he's even going to be charged with possession of a firearm. And I personally believe that, they went through a lot of effort to photograph him when he was arrested, but he didn't have a gun in his hand. And I was even talking to a law enforcement officer this morning about the arrest, and I don't believe they have that weapon in his possession. And they're going to have a hard time proving that. And if they already had his fingerprints on that weapon, they should have been able to, last hearing, charge him with parole violation, not calling his parole officer, and with possession of a gun. And they didn't do that.